Hey group. So I've been struggling with ulnar nerve neuropathy for almost a year now. Throughout that time, the experiences other people have shared online have been a huge benefit to my sanity. So this is my attempt to return the favor. Oh, and I have essentially no experience making or publishing videos. I've written my thoughts down and I'm reading off of that, which I think is probably obvious. At this point, it's clear to me that it's the sheer amount of time I've spent using a computer that caused this. My particular flavor of RSI seems to come in the form of sensory issues, though on rare occasion, when it's gotten bad enough, I have had some loss of motor control of my fingers. The symptoms I experience most often are tingling, prickly pins and needles sensations, or numbness. For example, say you've been curled up on a cushy chair sitting on your foot for a long time. When you get up and you go to use your foot, you discover that it's asleep. You know those weird sensations you get as it wakes back up? That's essentially what I get, or everything is similar to that. I gather the technical terms are paresthesia and or dysesthesia. I might be pronouncing those terms wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to try to document my complete history with this condition. I'm going to go through things in order from my earliest memories to the present. Before I start, I want to mention that I do have various memories of feeling discomfort in my hands after long periods of using the keyboard and mouse, especially in my pinky fingers. I believe this was going on throughout all the time periods I'm going to mention, maybe even earlier. The earliest memories I have of issues that I think were related would have happened somewhere around 2007 to 2009 or thereabouts. I remember having discomfort in both of my elbows. I ended up needing to adjust how I slept. I would normally lie flat on my back with my arms relatively straight at my sides. I remember feeling that I was keeping my elbows too straight. I mitigated the issue by moving my hands onto my hips. That left my elbows on the bed, resulting in a slight bend in them. That seemed to that seemed to solve the problem, or so I thought. The next time I remember noticing issues started around 2018. I have this jacket whose cuffs fit maybe slightly snug around my wrists. I started to notice that having those cuffs around my wrists would consistently eventually cause slight numbness and or tingling in my hands. I want to be clear that the cuffs on this jacket really aren't that tight. That's why this is a relevant point. The cuffs aren't tight enough to cause this problem. In fact, there's actually still a tiny bit of space between my wrist and the cuffs. And that's why this has always struck me as odd, and yet it's very consistent. I ended up making a habit of pulling my hands up inside the sleeves in order to avoid this. I maintain this habit to this day whenever I wear that jacket. This next memory is much clearer. It would have been late September of 2021. I started getting woken up in the middle of the night by pain in my right pinky finger. This is the first time I remember feeling concerned. I initially had no idea what was causing the pain, and I had no way to stop it other than to wait it out. After maybe a day or two, I made the connection that it was my keyboard and mouse use. This is the point where I started purchasing various ergonomic solutions. The next memory is a bit fuzzy. Things were hectic at work. I had a lot I needed to get done and not a lot of time to do it. I started to notice that I was getting numbness in my hands, especially the right hand, and especially the pinky. Almost subconsciously, I started avoiding using my right hand. I started using both the mouse and keyboard entirely with my left. The numbness started in my left as well. I think it would have been around this time when I first started engaging my physicians. At first they suspected that it was carpal tunnel. Later it was determined to be cubital tunnel or ulnar nerve entrapment. This next memory is very clear. It was November 2nd of 2021. It had been a long work day. I had been putting up with the numbness I was feeling in both of my hands. I work entirely from home, and as what wasn't entirely uncommon, I hadn't had a shower yet. There were elections that day and I needed to go vote, so I went to take a shower. As I washed my hair, I noticed that something seemed wrong with my right hand. I don't remember feeling pain at the beginning. It just felt very odd. As I was finishing up, the odd feeling started turning into pain. It started in my hand, and over the next hour or two, it spread to my elbow and then eventually my shoulder. I went ahead and voted anyways. It wasn't intolerable at that point yet, though I think I may have a high tolerance for pain. The pain eventually became so bad that I remember considering going to the emergency room or calling 911. It lasted for 5 or 6 hours. It was so bad I couldn't think about anything else. All the things at work that were causing me stress no longer mattered. I remember taking some pain medication, though I was never sure if that actually helped. Eventually the pain did subside. After the day of intense pain, as time went on, it became clear to me that I wasn't going to be able to keep working. Somewhat fortunately, I had a lot of vacation time accumulated at the end of the year. Once the break from work started, I was essentially completely off the computer. The only time I might use it was to organize things with my medical providers. I think it was this period where I was having the worst time sleeping. I probably got a good month of rest. At this point, I'm convinced that it was long periods of rest like this one that helped much more than anything else. I don't have a terribly clear memory of the order in which I attempted the various treatments that I've tried. At this point, I had seen a few different doctors about the issue. I was eventually referred to a surgeon. The surgeon had me take a nerve conduction studies test. That test essentially came back positive, though they did say I did not yet have permanent damage. The surgeon's recommendation was surgery, and being totally honest, I was horrified. I had been under the impression that conservative measures like physical therapy were going to be recommended. I was still hopeful that my condition wasn't that severe. In fact, the surgeon said it was mild. From doing my own research, I was convinced that surgery was only a last-ditch effort reserved for severe cases. My long vacation, coupled with the fact that the company typically has a hiatus at the end of the year, gave me a lot of time to both rest the arms and try out physical therapy. Now, I know I was feeling significantly better when I first went to see the physical therapists. In hindsight, I really don't think the physical therapy did much of anything, though at the time I thought it did. I don't really know when it started coming back. It was a slow, gradual process. But by the end of June 2022, it was bad enough I started dialing back my computer-related activities. Long story short, I ended up going to see another surgeon. It had been long enough that the first surgeon's office said I would need to be reevaluated. So I thought I might as well get a second opinion. The new surgeon's recommendation was also surgery. So now I've had my first surgery. They refused to do surgery on both arms on the same day. I opted to have my right arm worked on first. The specific procedure that was performed is called ulnar nerve release or decompression. Whenever a release or decompression is performed, there's a chance that transposition will also be necessary. Transposition is a little bit difficult to explain, but I'll do my best here. Probably the first thing that needs to be understood is that this is essentially surgery along your funny bone. The term funny bone is a misnomer. Your funny bone is actually the part of your ulnar nerve that runs through your elbow. So your funny bone isn't a bone at all, it's a nerve. They basically cut open the inside of your elbow until they reach that nerve. Then they cut away any tissue that seems to be restricting the nerve. They refer to the tissue as fibrous banding or adhesions. What they're essentially doing here is opening up space within the arm to allow the nerve to move. The surgeon will actually move the nerve around to ensure that it has been freed up. A rare problem that can result from this is that the nerve will no longer stay within that funny bone groove when you bend your elbow. It will pop back and forth over that bony bump just next to it. This will greatly irritate the nerve. They check to see if this is going to happen during surgery by bending your elbow while you're still opened up. To transpose the nerve means to move this part of the nerve out of the groove, we call the funny bone, essentially into your elbow pit. There are a number of methods they have to fix the nerve within its new position. The surgeon decided that transposition was not necessary for me at the time of surgery. At this point, I want to try to provide some closing thoughts. My surgery was on August 18th. It's been about 14 days since then. I can't really say there's been an improvement yet, unfortunately. Nerves heal extremely slowly. I gather it can take anywhere from 6 months to a year before things have fully healed. On top of that, I think this time estimate is really for people who are no longer doing damage to their nerves. People whose damage occurred in an instant during some traumatic event, as opposed to someone like me who has been doing damage over the course of decades, very, very slowly. Also, I haven't been able to figure out how to work effectively without causing myself pain. And so I don't think I've managed to stop doing that damage. On a bit of a side note here, I think the issue of RSI is still very poorly understood. I have a lot of thoughts on getting to the root of this problem. I think I'm going to make a separate video for that. I'm planning on making a follow-up video to this video, and I think 6 months from the surgery makes the most sense. So 6 months from August 18th would be February 18th of 2023. All right, I think that's it.